Hello, Josh.
Hey, Earl.
Josh Harris. Thank you so much for joining. I guess I wanted to start by asking, like, what's your story? How did you get into this incredible topic that is complex and emotional and all of this in between?
Well, it started. I'm a mental health counselor here in Huntsville, Alabama, and as I started seeing clients and meeting people, started meeting a lot of people that were connected and had gotten intertwined with narcissists, and it's kind of a buzzword now. As a friend of mine has said, everybody thinks their husband's a narcissist. Everybody can find someone that's a narcissist. But I've met some real people and met some people and that are narcissists, have narcissistic tendencies. A lot of clients that have been traumatized and hurt by narcissistic behavior. So as I've learned that, I've taken a lot of training on the subject on how to help those people be healed from those interactions and that trauma, and just as I
Hmm.
recognize the issue growing greater and greater, recognize the greater need for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where does it come from? I mean, from your experience, how does this happen?
Well, there's a couple of different factors of how someone gets to be a narcissist. Now, let's define narcissism is on a scale, on a spectrum. So, someone may have a narcissistic tendencies toward one area of life, where the other side, someone has a narcissistic personality disorder, where their whole identity and whole being is wrapped up in this narcissistic actions. It can come from a couple of different places. Biologically, people can be predisposed to narcissism. There's a lot of people that are narcissists that have been recognized by having smaller the frontal lobes, which is where the emotional center, the empathy segment of the brain is. So they may have biological tendencies because of their brain shape. It could be from neurotransmitters, about imbalance of neurotransmitters, hormonal. It could be biological. So there's biological factors there. Then there's also environmental factors, and that can come from two different types of extremes. The one extreme is they grow up and they're given an overabundance of gratitude or overabundance of love, and then they grow that overextended self-esteem. Okay, so mom and daddy's always like, "Oh, you're the best, you're the greatest. Oh, Johnny, you are the smartest little boy." And then Johnny gets an F on the test, and mom and daddy, "Oh, Johnny, that's not your fault. Your teacher doesn't like you. You're the smartest boy in that class." And so they get that sense of self, and so they have to try to keep up with that, right? Oh, mom and daddy said I'm the best. If anything's any less than that, then whoever says that's wrong, right? And this also comes from the trauma side of it. If mom and daddy never compliment little Johnny, and they're always, "Oh, you're the worst kid I've ever seen. You are so dumb." They overcompensate and say, "No, no one's ever going to tell me that again. And if anybody ever says that to me, they're going to be wrong." So you've got that biological factor, you've got that environmental factor, and then there's a spiritual factor to it. It says in 2 Timothy 3:2, in the last days, people will become lovers of themselves. And that identity of, I've got to love myself and be great within myself because I've got to be the greatest to fulfill my spiritual needs, to fill that emptiness. I'm going to overcompensate and I'm going to recognize as being the best I can be no matter what anybody says. And that's where that narcissism can develop from either one of those or a combination of those factors.
Wow. Wow. Now, I know this may be a complicated question because it kind of comes on to a little bit of profiling, which I know myself, I'm not qualified to do. But how do you spot a narcissist in the wild to be able to raise boundaries to keep yourself safe?
Well, a good way of recognizing a narcissist is recognizing how you feel around them.
Mm.
So if you have a relationship, you have a connection with someone, and you always feel the need, or a majority of the time feel the need to be apologizing to them for something you did, or they always feel a low self-esteem around them, or you just feel uncomfortable with them because they're just going to start talking about themselves. then you're going to start recognizing, oh, this person's got some narcissism around them. This person's got something that they are trying to overcompensate, and they're putting me down, because that's where it comes down to. Narcissism needs to feel that sense of self, that high sense of self, so they're going to bring other people down around them. So if you start feeling less than around a person a whole lot, then you're going to start to sense, hey, there's something off on this, and it's not a mutual relationship. So first of all, spot what you're feeling inside of you. But then what they're doing, recognizing the actions that they're taking. Okay, they do a lot of blaming, right? Everything's always somebody else's fault. When they do admit something, there's something wrong, there's never an apology, right? It's always somebody else has done something that it's really not them. They get that arrogant sense of self, that criticism of, oh, I can't believe so and so did this. I can't believe so and so did that. I would never do it that way. I've never done that. I'm really the best at that. So hearing a lot of criticism, and then as you get closer to someone in a relationship, whether that's romantic, friendship, and you start to recognize there's some manipulation there, and they say one thing and then something else happens, or they start having this grandiose sense of self that starts to be recognized over time of, oh, right, they really do think that they don't do anything wrong, right? And when you start recognizing no empathy from a person, that's a really big one. It's really where it kind of hinges, is when a person doesn't have any empathy for someone, they're going to treat someone poorly. So if you are sharing something that's painful, that's emotional, and they really don't reply with any sort of reciprocity to what you're experiencing, you want to be careful about what's really going on inside of them, that they're not giving back anything in this relationship, and I'm putting all the emotion in. I'm not seeing any reflection of that.
So, I mean, this is fascinating because I've read a little bit about the dark triad.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of, psychopath, sociopath, narcissist. What's the difference between these three, from your opinion? Because you're saying a lack of empathy, and that seems to be just kind of, a light's going on. Thinking, well, I mean, that can kind of cover a couple of different areas. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It can. They all three of those have a level of lack of empathy. Now it's the reactions of the person that depends on whether they're in that classification. So a psychopath is one that shows no emotions, whether they're doing good or bad. I'll give you an example. It's like the character Hannibal Lecter from the movies and the TV shows that they've presented, The Silence of the Lambs, back the movie years ago. He would do anything. He was a teacher, so he would be teaching people, educating people. But then he would go and do very evil things against other people, and his emotions were always like this. And so that's the definition of a psychopath: is no emotions, no matter what they're doing, with no empathy for anyone. A sociopath would be a good example of that. Would be like the Joker from the Batman comics. Right? He wants his way, has no care of what other people feel or what happens to them. He's going to cheat. He's going to steal. He's going to lie, no matter what. And when someone gets in his way, big emotions, right? Baseball bat to the person that's in his way. A lot of emotion loving, a lot of emotion in getting his way. So that's a sociopath. Now, for a narcissist, a classic narcissist, the best example that I could think of is Miss Piggy from the Muppets. What is Miss Piggy, right? She thinks she's the greatest singer, the greatest actor of all times, right? And if
Right.
anyone is associated with her, she is so much better than them. She couldn't, it's beneath her to be such around such low talent. When the spotlight comes, right, everyone get out of the way. Miss Piggy's got to be front and center, and if anyone gets in her way, whap, knocks Kermit out of the way so she can get the attention.
Sure.
So a narcissist is much more cunning and manipulative, and they're not as much about the evil as much as getting their way. Where the other two are a lot more anti-social, or anti, uh, more violent in their actions toward other people.
Wow. Okay. Um, how do how do we love a narcissist? I mean, if we're in a relationship or we're in a family or we're in a friendship, and we start to realize just based on the triggers that you've shared, and we're like, oh my goodness, I'm in a minefield. Like, how do we show love? How do we show friendship? Is it possible?
It can be. So a narcissist at the basis, and people don't believe me when I say this. When people are dealing with a narcissist and I tell them this fact, they're like, but it's true. A narcissist is very insecure. They're very insecure. They want this high sense of accomplishment and esteem from everybody. They've got to be perfect. If anything is less than that, then they go to the defense mechanism of their narcissism to bring other people down to make themselves feel good again. So, with that in mind, recognizing someone is insecure, a narcissist is insecure, have them feel loved and work to make them feel loved, thinking with that in mind, right? So, if someone is like going off on this grandiose concept of, oh, I did this, I did that, the words of, I would still love you even if you didn't do that well. I would still love you. I would still be your friend even if you weren't the best at that. And to recognize that their love and accepted, that unconditional love can come from you and it can be gotten by them without this elevated sense of self within them.
Right.
And it goes back to love your enemies, bless
Yeah.
those that curse you, do good to those.
Yeah.
And so you have to not just turn them off right away. And you can work to that. Now, what's going to happen with a narcissist is if they aren't able to get what they need from you, they're going to move on. So loving them, they're either going to embrace your actions of kindness or they're going to move on to the next person that it can fulfill what they need. So it is not anyone's job to change a narcissist. A narcissist can only change themselves. They can only make the changes that are within themselves and between them and God to change their thinking and to recognize those things. However, our role as Christians, as those that are called to love our community, right? Love those around us, love our family members, is to care for them and love them first and foremost, to let them know that they're loved, let them know that they are cared for, despite all the other things that they're saying, that, hey, you are good enough.
And like the idea of when they're just done with you, I've experienced that discard, and it's you don't have an apology, you don't have any rationale, you're just been done with, and it can be very dizzying. Do you have any suggestions of how to heal from that or how to move on from that, or considering that they may not take responsibility or even see that anything's been done wrong in with their worldview? How do the rest of us move on in a healthy way?
So there's a pattern that narcissists have. Like every narcissist is different, but every narcissist is the same. And it's in any kind of relationship, whether that's romantic relationship, whether that's work relationship, friendships, church relationships, wherever that is with the narcissist, has that same pattern of, let me get really close to this person. They're going to get really close fast. Hey, I'll be there for you. Whatever you need, I am there for you. Whatever's going on, you just tell me. I will be there. And on about that and getting that connection. And then when something bad happens, right, they start to distance themselves. Is any of this sounding familiar in your experience?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
I think there was this in my personal experience. There's this idea of like we're besties, we're in life together, and even the terminology of like we're all on a dog sled together, and we're being pulled along, and when one of us needs to rotate around and help the other out, that we all kind of pack in and get in there. Until it was very clear that I was uncontrollable. And then all of a sudden the negativity came out, and the triangulation, I found was an issue too, where it's like there was just these little pitted conversations that would be very difficult, and you'd end up having to put out all these little relational fires that you didn't start, and then before you know it, you're just cut off, and it's like I said, it's very dizzying, to go through that. And to experience other people going through that too, because I've witnessed in similar situations other people going through that discard, and it's difficult because there's the love bombing, there's the real big emotions, the big grandiose gestures, and then just nothing, and it's very strange, yeah.
It's that control factor of, oh, I have made this person love me.
Right.
Now I'm going to back away. Now I'm going to go silent. I'm going to ghost them, or I'm going to say some things that make them mad, or that. And so now I've caused the narcissist has made this person mad, and that's controlling, right? The narcissist has made other person, the victim, sad. That's them controlling them, right? And then they go back, oh, it wasn't really me. You took it the wrong way. That's
Right.
not how I meant it.
Yeah.
And they have that controlling aspect. I've not done anything wrong, even though that I'm working to make sure that I'm in control of the situation.
Mm.
And that triangulation, like you were talking about, is one of the hardest things for people who are getting out of those relationships or setting up those boundaries. So you've got brother and sister over here, and brother is being a narcissist to sister. So the sister says, hey, no more. Boundaries up. You apologize. You respect me, or I'm not going to see you anymore. Okay. Mom and dad over here say, hey, we're all coming to Christmas this year. No, mom and dad, I'm not going to be over there with brother because of the way he treats them. Then mom and dad, oh, now that's not right. That's not how you should be. We're family. He didn't mean it like that. That's not what's going on. All right. Brother goes back to mom and dad. I don't know why she didn't want to be around me. She's just so angry. She's just so mad. And so now you've got this triangulation, and the relationship between sister and parents can be as much difficult, or even more so in some situations, than brother over here, or in romantic relationships, right? Boyfriend is narcissist, girlfriend is connected with them, trying to get out of it. Friends over here, you need to leave him. I wouldn't see him again. I'd never speak to him for the rest of my life if I was you. And so now you've got stress over here. And then this person's over here talking to friends. Oh, all I want to do is love her. All I want to do is take care of her. It's such a misunderstanding. I don't know why she does this. Right. And that triangulation. And so those third party relationships with that are connected to the victim are just as difficult to get out of and control and manage than the one with the narcissist.
One of the things that I'm really curious about too, because I don't want to get into profiling, I'm not clinically trained to do that, but how do we spot a narcissist in the wild? How do we see them far enough away to be able to protect ourselves, to set up boundaries? How do we know what a narcissist looks like?
Sure. Well, there's kind of four different levels, four different types of narcissist. So there is the vulnerable narcissist, or the introvert narcissist, where they're connecting with other people. They're connecting with the popular people. So they're friends with the popular people. The popular people are getting attention, and they're getting attention, kind of third party, secondhand. So they're gaining their self-esteem from that. Or also those vulnerable narcissists can gain attention through sympathy. Right? They don't want all the attention from the group. I had a kid in my youth group years ago that I would consider a vulnerable narcissist, or that introverted narcissist, where he'd walk up to me and he'd just look up to me and says, "I'm being bullied at school." I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry. That is so terrible. Let's pray about that. Let's talk it through. Let's see what you can do." And then he would turn and just go straight to the next person and start the conversation with the sentence of, "I'm being bullied at school." And I'm like, I thought we just talked about this. Right. And he would start each conversation like that because he wanted that sympathy from others in that moment. And that's how he got his attention. Then there's the communal narcissist. This is kind of like the mom that kind of sneaks into being the head of the bake sale, and then the bake sale does wonderful. And it's like, oh, look what we did for this community. Look what we did for the school. Look what I did for it. And gets the attention through those kind of means of helping others, right? Then the classical narcissist, is the one that we think of, the manipulator, the one that wants to be in charge, needs all the attention, and that can be situational, right? I'm the narcissist at home, but not at work. And then the malignant one that's a real person. Now that's the far end of the spectrum, where every relationship and every type of connection they have is based on manipulation and gaining that attention from anybody.
So, what happens when it's too late, when we're already deeply involved with a narcissist, whether it's a friendship or it's come out in a family or a relationship?
Oh
Um,
yes.
and how do we heal with
Hmm.
narcissistic abuse? I mean, how do we love them? How are we able to move on?
Can we help a narcissist? A few years ago when I was in college and going through getting my counseling degree, a teacher said it was in the textbooks. There's no way to help a narcissist. Like no, there's no type of psychoeducation, psychotherapy that could ever help a narcissist. They've kind of come around. There's a little more evidence that there's some treatments that are helping. But one, you're not going to fix a narcissist. There's nothing any one person can do to fix them. We are called to love our enemies. We are called to pray for our enemies. Jesus goes through that. He speaks against narcissism. If you study the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit. I can't do anything without God. It's not about me. Blessed are they that mourn. They have empathy for others, right? Those, if you just those two and you keep going forward, those are all directly opposite of a narcissist, right? So there's a call that narcissism is wrong, and so we are called to love them, and we are called to do what we can for them as much as we can. There also comes a point where if a narcissist is going to keep hurting you every time you're around the person, you leave hurt, upset, disconnected, emotions are fried, anxious, angry. There comes a point where you need to cut that off, and that's not any sort of uh, disregard for anyone's spiritual maturity. If they're being attacked and can't stand a narcissist, right? There comes a point where we all have our levels. So there's the verse, right, um, the same sermon of love your neighbor, the Sermon on the Mount. At the end of that, Jesus gives the verse, "Do not cast your pearls before swine." If you've really done enough with a person and you really love them and they are not changing and you've prayed for them and you have tried all you can, there comes a point where there are boundaries that need to be put up. Now, boundaries is not just disconnecting from them, right? You're always called to pray for the narcissist, pray for the enemy, but also putting up those boundaries is going to be helpful for you and for them, right? If they eventually come to the point where, hey, everyone is against me, everyone has pushed me aside, it may be me. That may be the best thing you can do to help them. So it comes back to loving on them, giving them that unconditional love. And again, putting up boundaries is not unloving them, that is loving them. So to keep loving someone in a godly way, but if there comes a point where they're not accepting that and it's not helping and you're only being hurt, that boundary is going to be a sense of help to them as well.
One of the situations that I found too is, and I wanted to ask you about, is what happens if, say, a child within a narcissistic family grows up, moves out, and then
Mhm.
suddenly has an enormous amount of trauma to process, to deal with, to heal from, that have left scars
Mhm.
that will last for years. How does someone overcome that? How do they heal from that or move on from a very particular wound?
Well, the issue of a narcissist is not finding their identity in Christ, because they think if I do all of this and I maintain this perfection of never doing anything wrong or people seeing me as perfect, then I'm complete, right? And if they get anything less than that, then and they feel that sense of not good enough. That's shame. That's the world. That's Satan. That's their flesh looking at themselves and saying, "You are not enough." And that is where shame comes in. That's the first thing that Satan did with Eve, right? Eve was just good enough being in the garden, not have eaten of the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not have been clothed. She was just good enough for God in that moment. But Satan says, you need to be more. You got to be more. And that's what he says to the narcissist. You need to be more. If people find out that you're not as good as what you are, and you put down that persona, oh, they're going to think terrible of you. You've got to keep that up. But when you look at yourself and can say, you know what, I'm good enough. I am just good enough just the way I am. God loves me just as I am and not as I should be, because I'm never going to be as I should be. But God loves me just enough. God loves me just as I am. And it's overflowing. The love of that He has for me is overflowing. Doesn't matter what I do. Doesn't matter who I am, whatever my faults are. Then He's going to love me. He's going to love me. And I can embrace that and be comfortable with that.
So, Josh, this has been amazing. I'm kind of blown away by a lot you've said. You're a very wonderful guy, and you've been through this, and I can tell. How do people get a hold of you from here? How can we reach out to you?
Go to northwardcounseling.com. You're welcome to send me any questions you have on that, and want to be able just to make sure that if anybody has any follow-ups, that I can give them more resources, answer them anything. But northwardcounseling.com. And one of the main things people remember, if you've been hurt by a narcissist, if you have been the victim of narcissism, that narcissist has tried to hurt your self-esteem. You are better than what they have said about you. They have put you down for their own good, but you are good enough in God's eyes. And when you embrace that, then you're going to recognize that God's love is enough.
Wow. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much for your time. You're an incredible guy, and I'm really grateful for this. I hope we can continue and have another conversation soon.
Thanks for having me on, and thank you for doing this, Earl. Appreciate it. Mhm.